So I'm very happy to bring on stage some esteemed guests representing operators from across Europe. Please have a seat, and I will briefly introduce each of you. Starting with maybe Olaf Swanti. Olaf is a CEO turned investor, strategic business advisor and chairman involved in the UK in community fiber and in the Netherlands with Odido.
Thank you.
Welcome. Nikos Plevris, your Chief Network Officer at Vodafone Greece. We had initially advertised the presence of your CEO, but unfortunately it is not able to come, but we are absolutely delighted to have you with us. Greece is at more the beginning of its journey towards full fiber, so you'll explain to us the perspective of your country in this discussion. Marta Vuceswowska, and I'm sorry for the pronunciation. I'm always struggling with it, Marta.
Very close, very close.
Oh, very close. Okay, well, I'll do better next time. But you're CEO of FiberHorse. FiberHorse is an open access operator in Poland. Greg, you're CEO of CityFibre in the UK, one of the most dynamic markets in Europe. It will be interesting to get your view, and I'm jumping to Yuri. Yuri, you're CEO of Ukraine Telecom, and I remember, Yuri, we met for the first time in Kyiv at the end of 2021, very brief after in an event, and I remember very vividly sending you an SMS on the morning of February 24,
right,
the very day of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And I was amazed that you actually answered back within minutes. I didn't know whether it will go through. I didn't know whether, where you were basically, what was happening. Since then, we've been maintaining contact. At the FTTH Council, we thought it was very important to support Ukraine, to have Ukraine represent on stage in our conference in 2022 in Vienna. Again, in 23 last year. We are very happy to have you with us. I mean, you are really part of the family, and we are absolutely delighted that you can be with us today, despite the circumstances.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
So typically, the objective of the opening panel is to have an overview of the different topics concerning FTTH rollout and adoption across Europe. We will have early afternoon a panel dedicated to the situation in Germany, one of certainly the largest market in Europe. So we're not addressing the situation of Germany today. That will be extensively discussed early afternoon. But I would like to start with you, Olaf. In your role, you represent a little bit the view of the investor, and I would like to hear your view about the situation. Interest rates went up. That has an important impact on how investors are behaving. What is your view of the situation? We see some softness in the market, mid-term, long-term. How do you see the situation when it comes to investment in fiber?
Well, I mean, 2 years ago, 3 years, I don't know how it was 20 years ago when it started in 2004.
I don't know either.
2 years ago, if you had a shed with a few shovels in the UK, right? You had a PowerPoint and an Excel sheet which said, the future is fantastic. And you had a couple of ex-British Telecom engineers, you would get £100 million, no problem. Okay? This was the truth, right? Today, I would say it's a little bit harder. And Greg and myself certainly know that in the UK, that today we're moving into a market which is much more mature. There are winners and losers. There are investors that have lost their shirt. And there are investors that are seeing that their investments are paying off, or that are starting to pay off. So it's a more complicated environment. It's more for, I would say, the smart investors will be able to pick winners that have found a way to build dense networks, build end-to-end fiber, and more importantly, build networks that actually have take-up rates and good customer services. And those investments are much less risky than they were 4 or 5 years ago. So, in summary, it's the right time for smart investing. But it is a tough time out there for any FTTH player to get easy money.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the fact that the market is more mature, but that's not exactly the situation in Greece, Nikos. You wouldn't describe the Greek market from an FTTH perspective as being mature. How do you see the market perspective and that question of investment for your own market?
Yes, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to the panel. Yeah, it's an honor for me to share a few of my reflections when it comes to the FTTH market. So yes, Greece has an FTTH coverage of less than 30% as we speak, which is, if I'm not wrong, more or less half of the EU average. Yeah? And this is at a certain extent natural since we came out of a decade of economic crisis, yeah? In the last decade, back in 2019. So Greece is an area, is a country that it's worth investing. Yeah? We are in the take-up phase. Obviously, the economic environment and the situation we are in is not always very helpful. So there are certain reasons why the costs come up, labor cost, for example, inflation, wages increase, scarcity of resources that are creating a higher cost base for the deployment of the networks. As well, the fiber market, I would say it is a very competitive market. Yeah? And this, in order to acquire and retain customers in the network, it takes money. And guess what? This money comes out of the same pocket, yeah? The deployment, as the pocket of the deployment of the network. So yes, smart investment is something that's going to be needed. In that sense, I do believe that partnership, joint ventures, access to open infrastructure, access to shared infrastructure, yeah, can make the difference. And I do believe that the operators, the providers, the investors that focus on their original business plans, delivering quickly and fast in the market are the ones that are going to make the difference and finally dominate.
Okay. And Yuri, I guess situation is totally different, of course, in Ukraine, but still you have a business to run.
Yes.
And so the economics are still there, despite totally difficult and exceptional environment. So can you explain to us what's the situation after 2 years? How do you manage the uncertainty, and tell us a little bit more about how you see your business and your market in such a difficult environment.
Yes, well, unfortunately, it's clear that the war in Ukraine can persist for several more years. And, we have no choice except to fight against the enemy and to adapt our business to these dire circumstances. In order to describe in a one word the Ukrainian telecom market, resilience is the key defining characteristic of the entire Ukrainian telecom market, including the fixed internet market. Despite those terrible circumstances, such as air raid attacks and missiles attack and cities and towns without electricity, without power, and we clearly understand that the client and our people, businesses, critical infrastructure must be online and connected. When the full-scale invasion has been started, all the nationwide operators forgot about competition. We set ourselves aside from such a world. we all united our resources, our forces, sometimes even our infrastructures, to ensure the connectivity to the armed forces, to the critical infrastructure, businesses, as well as to our citizens. Now things look like before and business as usual, because we, as I have been mentioned, we adapt ourselves to these terrible circumstances, but this unity in a face of enemy or adversity still remains. Our fixed internet market is highly liberalized, and it has extremely low level of concentration. More than 800 small and local internet service providers operating in the different areas, cities, and even villages of Ukraine represent 60% of internet market in terms of subscriber base. On the one hand, it might be a good in terms of redundancy during the wartime. On the other hand, this decentralization creates a number of risks during the wartime. Among them, I can mention, law protection to cyber threats, for example. This data security concern, lack of resource for network repairing, and unfortunately, I have to say, some shameful cases of collaboration of the small internet service providers with invaders. Another change on the whole Ukrainian telecom market is the shift from emphasizing highest speed with the lowest or affordable price to the uninterrupted service under the blackout. Now Ukhtelecom provides power-independent service to more than 70% of our subscriber base during the blackouts. Definitely it requires significant investments into the power backup system.
And we will have an opportunity to go back to this operational side of things.
Okay, yes. But all those things allowed me to answer in a few minutes.
No, I know.
Your message, by the way, yeah, still it's ongoing.
Absolutely.
We try to keep this, this a vital necessity to the whole Ukraine to keep connectivity and to be in touch with all the families, friends, and businesses.
Absolutely, and I mean, it's always difficult to transition to a more standard approach of our market, but still, I'll try that and move to Greg. We mentioned, and Olaf mentioned, and Nikos told about investment and evolution of the context. How do you see the mix between private investment and also the role of public investment in the mix required to develop FTTH network in the UK, maybe more generally in Europe?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks to the Council and all your dedication to the fiber industry. I've been in it for a long time and really thankful for the support you've had. And I think I battle against BT every day, but Yuri, I can't imagine the battles that you face every day. It's striking. So my hat's off to everything you do, because communications infrastructure and communications is critical for life as we see it. I think the role of CityFibre first has raised $2.5 billion of equity and about $4 billion of debt. We're about 3.5 million homes passed, about 4 million by the end of this year. We're installing about 25,000 customers a month right now, net adds. So we're growing really healthily. We've just received over the last year 800 million pounds in government subsidy. It allows us to take our core critical assets where we have built and then expand them out into the rural zones. I think it's real critical that the government plays a role in this process, not necessarily as an active, but they play a really important role in regulation, which helps to keep the incumbents somewhat in their spot and allowing the alternate networks or the early adopting networks like ourselves to thrive, because either the government gives a physical franchise, which is what they've done in France in certain areas, or they create an economic franchise, which is the right for investors to invest and make a return. So the government has a very powerful role to play. In the UK's instance, we look to Ofcom to really regulate the prices, to regulate the incumbent, BT, who has significant market power and has the capability of destroying competition and suppressing the market, which you could argue they've done until the competitors or the competition began to thrive. So now the regulator has a role in helping to take the spark of competition, which Olaf mentioned was there's somewhere around 20, maybe 40 real alternate networks in the UK. They're now beginning to consolidate into one large third national network, and it's really the Ofcom, the regulator, and the government that has a policy that says we actually want a third national network in the UK to emerge, and that third national network will put significant pressure on the other two, which will then drive the investment program, because you could say the investment program of BT has been driven by CityFibre. You could say the investment program of Virgin has been driven by CityFibre, because the more we invest, the faster they invest also. So the whole market is shaped by the regulatory environment, and then the government ultimately has a role. In the UK, they've have a subsidy program up to 5 billion, where we've taken 800 million. That helps us to move around our assets. It also creates an infrastructure in those areas that will never really be overbuilt. It wouldn't make any sense for the incumbents to overbuild those networks. So they have a significant role in shaping, I think, the home markets in every one of them, and they should play an active role in establishing competition by the altnets, because every country has them, and making sure that they thrive. And there's two ways to make them thrive. In the mobile industry, they gave them frequency. In the fiber industry, they can give them franchise, or they can give them economics. And economics is what the UK is about today.
Well, thank you. I think we'll come back to this regulatory framework because, as you say, regulation, investment, role of government, everything is intertwined. But maybe if we stay for a second on the question of investment, Marta, when we were preparing this session, you explained to me that there is also an element which is interesting in investment. This is the role of ESG and sustainability. Increasingly, investors are looking at what could be the impact on fiber. We heard Raf mentioning that for the council, we're looking at making fiber investment recognized as green, so they can satisfy the need of investor to go in that direction. What is your take on investment and ESG?
Yes, thank you for the question, Vincent, but I must just say first, sorry, Yuri, I really admire the Ukrainians and how resilient you are, and how you are showing that in these difficult times the communication, what we do, is also really important. So really kudos to you guys, and I'm a little bit speechless, so it's really difficult to so I feel that now when we are going to talking about anything else, it will be just irrelevant, but let's try because this is why we meet here. As to ESG, definitely, I see that the importance of this part, this notion is growing within the investors. I can see from the experience with two of our previous investors of FiberHost. Those were both investment funds, infrastructure funds. They were focusing on our ESG activities. This was like a prerequisite to even talk about investing their money into the business, into the company. So it's also really important. Also, we gathered recently the bank financing, and our activities in ESG reduced significantly the cost of getting the financing. And well, from the experience of my company, I see that thanks to all the activities that we do in the ESG sphere, we get easier access to the funding. And also I see that in Poland, this view on ESG matters is changing significantly. Annually, we take this survey among our suppliers, vendors, contractors on how they are acting on the sustainability on the ESG. And last year's result showed that overwhelming majority of our vendors, suppliers, 95% of them is taking an active action in sustainability.
Okay. And Olaf, the investor you represent, do you see that trend really strengthening? Is it really meaning serious business when we talk ESG, or is it more window dressing? How do you see it?
No, I think first of all, I mean, if you plan in the long run to be quoted on the stock exchange, you need to realize that the requirements are nearly as much as the financial reporting nowadays. So you have to, whatever you do, you have to prepare yourself for big reporting, and that's also in the private space, but less so than in the when you are quoted. The second thing is that it moves away from greenwashing to real action plans. So you can't, a few years ago, you could get away by saying, you know, our goal is to be CO2 neutral in 2076 or something. Today, that's not acceptable, right? So you have to be much more specific. You need to show your plans, and not only for investors, but also for your employees, I would say. I mean, I get pressure from my family, myself, my employees, and the shareholders to do something about this. And I think the last thing I would say is that a few years ago, it was more about only CO2, and now it is much more about the whole range of matters. In particular in Europe, which I think is very good, is the focus on diverse workforces. So CO2, diverse workforces, and then there is a whole range of other things you also have to do. So I think it's becoming as important as your financial world, and that's good.
Absolutely. I mean, at the FTTH Council, we have two very active committees, one focusing on sustainability, another one on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So, and that is really coming from all of our members. And it's increasingly driving investment strategy. But that also, maybe if we go back now to this question of policy regulation, which are shaping the environment in which your company operates. Nikos, how does it work on your side in Greece? How have you seen the evolution of the regulatory framework, and how is it helping FTTH deployment?
First of all, there is a fundamental difference between regulation and over-regulation. Yeah? And I think that especially us that are working in the telecom sector have been experiencing in the past both flavors. Yeah? Over-regulation does not help. On the other hand, the proper pro-investment regulation is a must in order to create clarity, to create security, to protect investment, predictability, create predictability for the market, and at the end, boost the business case and the development of the gigabit networks. Now, The regulatory framework and the intervention that's going to be needed depends on the maturity of the market. Yeah? There are markets that are more competitive, that are more developed, where things are more straightforward. Yeah? On the other side, there are markets that are struggling, like Greece. Yeah? They are late, where the support of the regulatory regime and public policies can make the difference. Yeah? I could see certain initiatives like volume-based discounts when it comes to the FTTH incumbent products, yeah? That can make the business cases more attractive, boosting the market. I could think as well that a regular update of the wholesale pricing of the FTTH products can also boost the market. I do see that the structural changes in the taxation of the telecom sector, and I'm talking particularly for Greece in that case, can also help towards this direction. And last but not least, obviously, support from the government and from the local authorities to change the way we are doing business by abolishing different administrative burdens that delay plans and make the business case more difficult are obviously initiatives that can help towards this direction. Yeah?
Okay. And still on regulation, one of the key things we are hearing is the importance for policymakers and regulators to carefully manage the concept of open access. Greg, your company is wholesale. It very much depends on cooperation with internet service provider. Can you describe a little bit how that works, how the state or the government can make it work better? Because one of the ways to accelerate deployment of fiber is to ensure that cooperation ensure the most effective use of investors' money to develop and get the take-up as high as possible. What is your view on this?
Well, my view is it's bloody difficult. It's really, really tough to be an open access provider. We're a pure wholesale only. We have approximately 40 consumer ISPs that are on our network, and they're selling every single day across that footprint. And then we have about 50 business service integrators that are on our network, and then we have 2 big mobile operators that are serving us, and then we have the integrators for public sector. So we're selling fiber across the whole spectrum. All of that is done with other integrators or ISPs or service providers on our network. And we spend all of our time, energy, and money on making sure that we run what we call a carrier-grade network. So a carrier-grade network to us is the best in class, the finest service metrics, the finest SLAs, the standardized installs across your entire footprint, so that any service provider that can attach to your network can get the exact same service in Inverness, which is way up north in Scotland, all the way down to Plymouth, which is a city in the south of England. And they're all identical SLAs and identical service levels and identical products. And that's what we spend all of our energy on, making that operate. Now, in the UK's context, the entire market is dominated by really four operators or 4 ISPs. You have Virgin, the cable operator, you have BT Retail, you have Sky, and then you have TalkTalk. Between that's over 90% of all the consumers attached to those networks. So when we as a wholesaler come and emerge, there's really only one play that we have, which is to get to scale. And then once we get to scale, we can bring those service providers onto us. They won't come across small, isolated islands. So to be a wholesale operator, I think in any home market, you're going to have to get to scale so that the big ISPs, the big service providers, want to use you. Otherwise, the economics won't make sense to use you at the expense of leaving the incumbent's network. So we have a real task at hand now, which is to bring scale to the market, because if you can bring scale to the market, across our market, then we can bring economics. And if we bring economics, we can attract the service providers, including BT Retail. There's no reason BT Retail should be 100% just buying from BT Openreach. If they're truly structurally separated, then BT Retail should be using us. I mean, I can sell a product cheaper than Openreach is today, so I don't know why that dynamic hasn't occurred. But that's where the regulator helps to make sure that the economics are protected, and CityFibre's economics are here, and Openreach's economics are here. And as long as we have that ability to have a price differential in the market, and a strong one, then we will attract the users, the customers, and the service providers onto that network. So it's a real balance now. The regulator has to make sure that he almost keeps some of the wholesale prices high, that allows the other wholesale networks in the case of the UK to thrive and to get an economic return for our investors. Therefore, we continue to invest and grow.
Marta, you're also open access. Your company actually split, and you're running really a pure open access business. Do you have the same analysis as what Greg just described in the context of Poland?
Yes, I could just say exactly the same words as you did, Greg. But I will add to this that regulations really affect our business, our day-to-day business, and also, more importantly, investment decisions. And in Poland, we've been trying to discuss with the regulators, with the legislators, that we have the same goal, that this is our same goal to expand, to have an open market, to have the competition, and to build as many of, to deploy the FTTH network in Poland. And unfortunately, we reached a dead end. And I must say that we are now in a position when the regulations that are in place in Poland are not favorable towards the open access operators. And it really affects our investment initiatives, because it's really difficult to take a decision on the investment. As Raf mentioned, there are 30% of the most difficult places to be built, so white of the whitest spots. And to make the investment, you need to have predictable, stable, and transparent regulations. As you do not have it, in my opinion, it will really slow down the deployment of FTTH, unfortunately, to the detriment to the end customer.
Mm-hmm. I understand. I'm moving away a little bit from this topic and talking about maybe more operational challenges, because the regulatory environment is one thing, but you're also facing on a daily basis some operational challenges, which I would like maybe Yuri to comment. I mean, when it comes to operation, once again, your situation is very specific, but also I guess it's been the opportunity to show a lot of initiative, ability to be resilient, to come up with smart ideas. So can you tell us practically how things are working at Ukraine Telecom when it comes to making things work on the network?
Okay, well, not all of them might seem like, applicable for the normal operations, but some of them definitely could be interesting to the audience and to the other colleagues. Besides of that power-independent connectivity, there are three key operational challenges we have been facing during these 2 years period of time. First of all, of course, cyber attacks. The second one, lack of qualified technician staff. And the third, I can mention, the lack of external financing. In terms of cyber attack, of course, the war in Ukraine is the first ever war which is a real hybrid war. As hostilities take place not only on the battlefield, but in the cyberspace as well. During these 2 years period of time, we have been able to reject and protect our infrastructure from more than 1 million attempts of cyber attacks on our infrastructure. And we've got, of course, the huge experience, and we are ready and will be happy to share such an experience with our industrial colleagues. That migration within the country and mobilization to the army left us, as well as the other telco players, with a limited staff resources, qualified engineers, as well as the field force technicians. We are suffering from the lack of those people in order to lay down the cable, in order to connect the customers and troubleshoot damages. That's a real problem. But despite these things, we keep investing in our FTTH GPON infrastructure. That is the same what we are talking about. Now we're coming back to the normal things we talk about. We heavily invested during these 2 periods of time, despite these terrible conditions. We have deployed more than 11,000 kilometers during these 2 years, and we increased the coverage up to 2,070,000 home passes. The only one thing, it is far below than we could have done having the long-term with a low interest rate financing as it was before. Now we could rely only and solely on our internal resources. Therefore, the key obstacle to continue the business as usual, the availability of external financing for all the telco industry in Ukraine. Yeah.
Thank you. You give me a hard time to transition to any other subject, Yuri. But I want to, nevertheless, to touch upon another topic, which is tech-up and adoption. And looking at you, Olaf, also, again, with the view of an investor, because it's all very good to put your money, I would say, in the ground or in the conduits, but if it's not connected to paying a subscriber, you don't get your money back. So how do you see that question? I mean, Eric, again, Raf was mentioning, we only have 50% take-up across Europe. In some countries, this is even lower. If we don't bring that to a higher level, there's no return on investment, and that doesn't, in return, fuel additional investment for additional coverage. What is your view on take-up, where you sit?
Yeah, so very operational, because I'm accountable for a business in the UK, Community Fibre, and Odido in the Netherlands. Community Fibre, we are selling like crazy. Okay, so we're very successful in selling ourselves with our own brand, and I think one of the key things we should not underestimate is the fact that this industry has not proven itself to create true customer satisfaction. It's surprising to me, because I come out of the mobile industry where there's a lot of technical and customer dissatisfaction problems as well. But the mobile industry typically runs NPS 20 points better than broadband. Okay? It's quite surprising. when you think about it. Even in FTTH, when customer has high-speed infrastructure, TV streaming, you know. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we have underestimated the importance to invest in customer services, in making sure that you keep your promises, that you can install, like what Greg said, you know, that you have the same SLA everywhere, that you can, when a customer wants it in 24 hours, you install it in 24 hours. And that you tackle the most difficult area, which was, I think, covered before by some of the FTTH council leaders, is the whole in-house coverage piece that you need to tackle as well. So, without making any publicity for the companies that I work with, but we have managed to increase take-up like crazy without any brand name. I mean, nobody knew our name, and we weren't even a national player. But that was because we prioritized not sales, not tech, but customer services first. And I would really recommend that to the people in the room that look for take-up solutions. It's not just about hard selling, it's about creating customer satisfaction.
And Nikos, I'm putting the spot on you. We didn't prepare that question, but I think in Vodafone, I guess customer satisfaction is also something you have at the core of your strategy.
I couldn't agree more on what Olaf said. Yeah, so I think that what makes the difference is customer satisfaction. Yes, we need more aggressive and more innovative marketing plans. We need competitive pricing, but at the end, what makes the difference is the operational excellence and the superiority of the services we are offering to our customers. Now, in that sense, I think that normally there is little differentiation when it comes to the services we are offering. So the difference can be made by the customer experience. Yeah? And to my personal view, we need to find ways, smart ways to commercialize the capabilities of the networks. We offer broadband, yeah? Little differentiation, I would say. But the ingredients that the broadband network is consistent of, like latency, like availability, high-level availability, can be commercialized to tailor-make services that are fit for purpose to the customer need.
But when you're open access, when you're wholesale only, how do you approach customer satisfaction? Do you limit it to the satisfaction of your ISP, or can you do something to help your ISP partner increase take-up? How do you manage that relation? Maybe starting with Greg, and if you want to touch upon it, Marta?
As a wholesaler, we are obviously dependent on the retail layer to do his job. However, what we have done at CityFibre, and it's been very successful, is we stand on three principles. A superior product at all times, right? So we're XGS-PON based, and we're going to roll out up to 10 gig services available to our ISP partners. That's the best product on the market, for sure. And we always maintain we'll be the best product on the market, for sure. Then we maintain economics. We'll give you the best economic solution on the market. So best product, best economic solution, give that to the retailer, and then you wrap it with, we are going to stand behind industry-leading SLAs, so better SLAs. What do we mean by that? Better availability. So we run 99.995%. We're trying to be carrier grade at all times. So we build our networks, we run our networks, we operate so that it never goes down. We install 95% of our connections, 95% of the time, right first time, meaning the first time that truck pulls up, 95% of the time he installs it at that point. Our early life failures, so how many times does that fail? In the first month, we're running 0.05%. PT, Openreach's early life failures are close to 4%. So what we do is we wrap the best product, the best economics with the best service, and then we hand it to the ISPs, the service providers, to perform. And that overall wrap has allowed us to have some of the highest NPS scores in the entire industry for CityFibre, which carries through because the consumer sees that When he orders, he gets it, it's on time, it stays up, and it runs. That's all you really want. As an infrastructure internet provider, all we really want is the line there and runs, and we never want a phone call, right? But we're also rolling out now something that is really transformational, and it's been rolled out across almost half our cities, which is proactive repairs. So with a modern fiber plant, you can design it, build it, monitor it, and run it so that if there is a cut, you will see that cut before the user even sees it go down in his house. So what we do now is we dispatch our service onto users before they have phoned us to say their internet has gone down. And in fact, there's a famous case that made it onto the television, which is a user was in his garden and he cut his fiber cable. He went inside to the house and he said, oh my God, what am I going to do? Who do I even call? I know that I've cut this cable. And our van pulled up in the street and started to repair the cable before he even phoned. That's what we try and do, is delight the entire process, the industry, change that paradigm, because you can see those faults before the user does, and you can proactively repair them. So that's what we do. That's the way we think about it, is to run the finest infrastructure there is, and to make it completely seamless to the user so he doesn't even know that it's there.
So, Marta, do you also repair fiber in the garden of your customer in Poland?
After that, seriously, Greg, there's nothing I can say about customer satisfaction, because we cannot predict that the guy is going to cut the cable. But getting to and getting the satisfaction in Poland, of course, all of us are discussing why the take-up is not as high as we imagined, why people are leaving, because this is the problem that we are now facing, that people that come to our network and then there's churn, they are leaving. So we started thinking, why? Why is it happening? Because we are giving the end customer the freedom of choice from the service providers he can choose from. So he can choose whatever she can choose the offer from different service providers. We give them the technology, which is, should fulfill all the needs, digital needs of this, of the customer, plus the technology that will be fulfilling this, her needs for years to come. We get durability, stability, quality. So why? And in Poland, this is always the question of knowing the product, of knowing the technology. We feel that there is not so much digital proficiency or experience, and people just doesn't understand. So this is the work of infrastructure owners, but of service providers as well, to think how to make this technology more understandable, more approachable, and how to make it to the best use of the end customer. So this is something that we are now thinking of, because customer experience is paramount. This is the most important thing, and I'm really happy that we will be talking at this conference on this topic, because for the take-up, till, let's say, 60% of the take-up, it's easy. But what next?
To exceed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Marta. And we're approaching the end of the session, so I would like maybe to ask a word of conclusion from each of the panelists, starting with you, Yuri. If you were to express in a few words, what are the key things which really matter for you for the next year? How would you describe that? And maybe the same question, to each of you. The key element which will make your own strategy successful in the years to come. Maybe starting with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. Few words about our, gratitude to all the partners who have been helping us during these terrible more than 2 years. I'd like to to count all of them, that's few words. Microsoft, first of all, F5, Cloudflare, Palo Alto, and Cisco, Checkpoint Software Technologies, Oracle, Corning Optical Communications, Orange, British Telecom Group, and Marlink, and last but not least, the Cyber Future Foundation. All those companies, very fast repeated on our needs, and it was very valuable for us during this period of time. And secondly, frankly speaking, what I'd like to emphasize, the traditional model of vendor and client doesn't look realistic for current situation in Ukraine. Vendors and appropriate financial institutions should adhere the new approaches based on long-term profit-sharing arrangement, I can say. That if vendors and financing institutions, let's say, could realize that a first-comer advantage will pay off many times during the after-war, post-war restoration and even, deployment the absolutely new Ukrainian infrastructure. That's a point. And I'd like to share one thing. During our board management meeting with our colleagues, and some of them they are sitting here in the hall, we used to say, we have to invest when everyone is afraid. And we should be afraid when everyone is investing. That's a case which might be applicable for Ukraine and the entire country, including the telco industry.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a hard summary to follow. I'll just keep it I'll keep it very short. My objective is to get to the NPS numbers of Apple and Tesla, so they are 85. The industry in FTTH is running around 5 to 10. When we do that, I think this business and this market and all these players will thrive, because the data growth is enormous. We will get to 900 gig per household in a few years. Pay TV is coming down, so you start seeing streaming TV, which requires FTTH. And generally, as you said, Yuri, everywhere, the digital infrastructure is so essential in people's lives. The reason that my company is called Community Fibre is because we started out in the community, in the poorest parts of London. And I can tell you, when you install FTTH in a small apartment with 1 room or 2 rooms, and you have 6 people sitting in that room, and you can change their life a little bit by having a phenomenal experience on FTTH, as they can't travel, they can't come to Berlin, they can't. That's amazing. That's really cool, and that's something that I would like to achieve over the next few years.
Okay, well, I'm glad you want to reach the same level of NPS as the FTTH Council has.
You have 85. That's great.
Nikos.
Yeah, the key summary from my side is that we need to stay focused. Yeah. So to my personal view, the digital transformation, the digital society is not a matter of if it's going to happen, but it's a matter of when this is going to happen. So to my personal view, it is extremely important that we stay focused in our plans, and that everyone, investors, policy.
The coffee break is now being held in the exhibition.
Well, that's nice. I had set up this call to make sure we're on time, so nearly on time. Please, Nico.
I will be very fast. This is the mission of fiber host company. We need to fight for the digital inclusion of as much poles as possible. So this is my summary, and this is what we are, striving to do in next years.
And Greg?
I don't want to keep everybody from their coffee because that's the most important thing. So I won't go long. Because the economic climate has shifted, I think it's a really good thing. The economic climate shifting means that everybody that has money is precious with that money now, and they're operating better. So they're concentrating on customers, services, quality, everything is sharpening. So sharpening your sword. So the economic climate is shifting, has created I think, a tremendous opportunity to increase your performance. And that's what we're seeing. So all the altnets in the UK, they're performing exceedingly well now. They realize their life is on the line. And when your life is on the line, you perform exceedingly well with your targets and objectives. So I think it's a great time in our industry overall.
Well, thank you so much for each of you for participating in this panel. I would encourage you to give a big round of applause to our panel.